What is up, you guys? This is the Contax G2 and this is my favorite 35mm film camera. Welcome back to the channel, you guys. Today I want to talk to you about this beaut of a camera, the Contax G2. I found this camera while I was on tour in London. I stopped at a camera shop called Sean and Dean's Cameras, and this camera was sitting on the shelf and I had to cop it. I'm pretty proud of the condition of this camera, especially since it's from the 90s for it to be in this great a condition. A few scratches here and there, but what more can you ask for from a camera that is that old? Before I get into the personal reasons as to why I love this camera so much, I want to talk to you guys a little bit more about the specific specs of this camera. The Contax G2 shoots film, specifically 35mm film. If you guys don't know what 35mm film is, this is what it looks like. It has a wide shutter range from 1/4000th of a second all the way down to bulb mode, so you can kind of manually dial in exactly what setting you want no matter what. I personally use the 35mm Zeiss lens. It goes down to f2, which is a very low aperture for a camera of this magnitude, and it's great for all types of photography, from landscape to portraiture to events. It can kind of get everything done, and that's why I love it so much. Along with the 35mm Zeiss lens, I have this TLA 200 flash on top, which helps kind of get the job done in every single situation or circumstance that I'm shooting in. This camera is sleek, it's fast, and it's beautiful, and it's everything I want in a 35mm film camera. So let's get into the pros and cons of this camera, and let's just start off with the cons to get those out the way. The first con of this camera is that it eats up film extremely fast. It has an automatic reel, which means it's able to pull your film through there very quickly, and you kind of just speed through rolls of film. Also a blessing at the same time. The second biggest issue for me, or con, with this camera is going to have to be the autofocus. The autofocus system is automatic, which is great in a lot of situations, but when you do miss focus, which it does sometimes, it's not your fault. Whereas opposed to like a rangefinder or a camera that you manually focus on, you have full control there, and if you mess up, it's your fault. Whereas with this camera, if you miss focus, the autofocus system, you can kind of blame it on that, and that becomes very frustrating, and that's definitely my #1 con with this camera. The last con that I have is that it is a Contax, which means it's going to be very difficult to try to find somewhere to fix this camera or check up on it. It's hard with all film cameras or older cameras, but with a Contax, for some reason, it's based in Japan, the parts are hard to find. It makes it very difficult to find fixes if you do run into issues with these cameras. So pros: versatile. This camera can shoot everything from landscapes to portraits to nightlife to music to live music photography. Whatever you need it to do, this camera can kind of get the job done, and it's proved that to me time and time again. The second pro is that the design. Obviously, it is a beautiful looking camera. Everything was kind of built with the idea of the photographer in mind, meaning every knob is in the right place, every slider is where you want it to be, and when it comes to taking photos, it makes it very easy to use this camera. Every button is supposed to be where it's supposed to be, and it honestly just looks beautiful. I mean, this is a very, very well built, beautiful camera. The third pro that I have with this camera is that it is a glorified point and shoot in certain circumstances. It's not, because you can change the lenses and there's so much control over this camera that it's not obviously a point and shoot camera, but if you put it on automatic, you can hand this camera kind of to anyone and they can take decent photos with it. Obviously, it's gonna take some practice to dial it in and get exactly how you want it, but pretty much anyone that gets a hold of this camera can figure out how to use it. Another pro with this camera is that it has interchangeable lenses. I specifically stick with the 35mm lens because I love that lens, but there is a large variety. I believe there's 4 specific Zeiss lenses that you can choose from, and Zeiss is such a sharp, creamy, beautiful lens to use with photography, so that is also a huge benefit when it comes to this camera. And lastly, the exposure compensation on this camera works amazingly well. Sometimes I feel like I use exposure compensation on a film camera and it doesn't really do anything, whereas this, I definitely see the differences in those photos when working with exposure compensation. All in all, this camera has definitely captured some of my favorite moments, from shooting with Travis Barker backstage to live music to events to just taking it out with my friends and making photos wherever that may be. I love this thing and I will continue to use this thing until it does not work. But until then, you guys should definitely go and give it a shot. If you could rent one or find a friend that has one, definitely look into it. Maybe watch more videos about it, because it is a powerful camera and I love this thing. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you learned a little thing or two about this camera. Hopefully you guys liked this type of video where it's more of a talking about a camera, a specific camera. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below. Thank you for hanging out. Peace.